Welcome to the 129th episode of the Mana Entzug podcast. My name is Jakob, and the Mana Entzug podcast is all about Magic the Gathering with a focus on Commander. I hope you had a great week. You might hear something that's different to normal. I'm speaking now in English, though this is normally a podcast only in German, but I want to try something new, and I've invited my first guest for the English podcast episode, and it's Jordan. Hello.
Hello. I'm super happy to be on there. I think be on here. This seems like a lot of fun. Thanks for doing it in English, because I would not be able to do it in German at all. So
yeah, that's no problem. I'm so happy that you join me today, because we have a very interesting topic for you today. We are talking about creatures that we would love to see as legendary. And yeah, are you hyped for this one?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm really excited. Honestly, it was hard to narrow it down. There were so many that seemed like really fun additions to this list, but this is a great idea. Yeah. I'm excited to talk about them.
Yeah, I'm also really excited, and it's a really interesting list and really interesting abilities for those non-legendary creatures. Before we start there, though, I have to say a few things. I want to thank all my patrons for supporting me and the podcast. Thank you very much. And every episode, I'm shouting out a person who's supporting the podcast, and this time it's Shulu. Thank you very much for your support. It really helps and makes a difference. If you also consider supporting Mana Entzug on Patreon, which helps the podcast and the project a lot, and in return you can also get benefits like downloading the podcast episodes as MP3 one day before release, access to the Patreon area of the Mana Entzug Discord, up to a monthly Patreon call with me. In addition, each patron automatically takes part in a monthly Ultimate Guard giveaway. So there's also the Return to Earth boulder. I don't know if you have seen these. Those are made for renewable plastics or something like that. And
oh, neat.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen them, but I'll check it out.
Yeah, check it out. Or when we see each other, maybe on the next MagicCon, but we come to that soon. And there's another way to support the podcast. I have a Spreadshirt shop, which wears merchandise like t-shirts, hoodies, and bags, and whatever you would like. And this would help me also greatly, because some part of the from those sales will go to me directly. And the last thing you can support the podcast is if you buy your stuff anyways online, and there's a shop called Games Island, and there's an affiliate link in the show notes in the video description where you can just use the link and you won't pay any cent more and still support the show. Yeah, and the last one is, of course, share the podcast with your friends and tell them about Mana Entzug. That would also help. But enough of that. We just go to the next step, Jordan. I already said we met last year at MagicCon. It was very interesting because I was shooting for my vlog.
Yeah,
that was pretty fun, and we had already. I interviewed you a little bit, and I thought still, because many viewers might not know you, it would be interesting to get to know you a little bit better. So my first question to you would be: how old are you? Where are you from? And what do you do for a living?
Well, I'm 35. I'm originally from the East Coast of the United States, but I live out in California now, in Los Angeles, and I work for the CommandZone on YouTube. So, we make game nights and the CommandZone podcast and extra turns and all that. And I'm a writer and producer for them. So when we shoot little like fun side videos and stuff like that, I write and produce a lot of those sort of things, like for we call it the CSI video for
Oh, yeah.
Murders at Markov Manor. We did our whole little parody where Jimmy and Josh came in as cops in the thing, and I wrote that and got to work on it and stuff like that. So it's a lot of fun. I really like my job.
Yeah, I can see that, and I love this one from Murders at Karlov Manor because it was so well
Yeah,
written
Karlov
and read
Manor.
out.
I said Markov Manor again.
Yeah. I think it's a habit that establishes at some point, but yeah, really like that. And also you do on the Game Nice Live thing, the narrator or something you say about the game, you introduce the players and so on, right?
I tend to be the herald, so I'll come out and be like, "Ladies and gentlemen, blah blah blah." It's the role I was meant to play. I get to yell in front of a crowd and be all grandiose about things. It's a lot of fun,
and people loving it that you're yelling at them. That's great. What's also pretty interesting, I remember from our last time we met that you were, before you joined the CommandZone, were also a mobile developer, right?
Yes. So I actually worked out of college. I worked as a web and mobile developer for like 8 years, making a lot of like children's apps and stuff like that. So there's like a PBS television show called Super Y, and we made a children's game that like would teach kids how to spell and rhyme words and stuff like that, and lots of other things like that for a company back on the East Coast. But now I'm all magic all the time.
All magic. So, yeah, very very interesting. And then, how did you get into the content creation? Was it just at game nights or at CommandZone, or did you something do beforehand?
So I actually started out because I'm a comedian and I just did a lot of comedy and writing around Los Angeles, just kind of in my free time. And I got involved in a tabletop RPG group that used to stream on Twitch. And it was called Saving Throw. And we did, live action Dungeons and Dragons games and stuff like that. And when the Ravnica setting came out, Wizards of the Coast wanted to do a show that showed off the new Ravnica setting, and we got to do the first show for that. And we wanted to pull in some people who the Magic community knew, so we found Ashlyn Rose. And me and Ashlyn Rose were both on this show. It was called The Broken Pact, and I got to know Ashlyn pretty well. And at some point, apparently Josh Lee Kwai had been asking, like, "Oh man, do we know anybody who like can write comedy and also knows Magic pretty well?" And Ashlyn was like, "Yeah, actually, I know a guy." And so she reached out to me, and I got in contact with him and started working with him, and that was about 4 years ago. So
very nice, perfect match in that regard.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can imagine. And then the last thing I always ask my guests is, how long have you been playing Magic: The Gathering now?
I started playing Magic when I was 8 years old.
Okay.
In Mercadian Mass block. And to be entirely fair, I can't say that I've just played nonstop the entire time through that. Like, Magic was kind of an on and off journey throughout my life. I'd get really into it in Theros or Lorwyn or Khans of Tarkir or something like that, but then I'd fall off for a while and stuff like that. But I got really back into it recently I say recently, but like in Amonkhet, and I've been just hardcore since then. That's when it went from like, yeah, I like Magic, I've got a couple decks, to being like, yep, Magic is my hobby.
Very nice. Yeah, I started. I completely skipped the first years. I just started 2018, and then I rolled with it.
Nice. It was a good year to start.
Yeah. I have a friend who played also in school, and then started picking it up when we were at university again. And somewhere when I started my job, and then he said, "Hey, we're playing Magic. Do you want to play Sealed or something?" I said, "Oh, yeah, okay, I can play Sealed." And then I got sucked into the whole witch's magic together.
It catches you. I mean, that's magic for you. It's hard not to get obsessed when you start getting into it.
Yeah, that's true. So, thank you very much for the short little interview. Now
okay. So you've asked me some questions, but I want to ask you one question.
Okay,
which is gonna expose myself as an ignorant only English speaker. I looked it up, but Mana Entzug.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? It's
it's
withdrawal.
Yeah, funnily enough, I put the first sentences I have in the script is pretty much always the same, and I put it into a translator and just put it in, and this translated it wrong. It's basically the card Mana Drain in German.
Oh, okay.
So it's a Mana Drain podcast if you would translate it directly, and the logo shows some kind of the Mana Drain artwork, the newer one where these twisters there, and the hand which and I thought of an iconic spell you would counter with Mana Drain, and it would be the Creator of Behemoth. So it's the Creator of Behemoth in the top.
I love it. That's great. Okay, that makes so much more sense. I was trying to figure out what it was, just putting it through a translator, and I was like, I don't know. Maybe this is like a German term for mana burn that they used to use or something like that.
Yeah, funnily enough, the mana burn was some question for the second year I was doing it. I was making a special episode, and one guy was asking, hey, why is it mana drain? Why not mana burn? And I thought, I didn't play when Mana Burn was still in place, so no.
You're like, I've got no connection with Mana Burn. I don't play with those old rules.
If I want to, I play this one commander, this Junt commander, which basically enables Mana Burn.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Yarlock, I think, Yarlock of Scorch Slash or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. If I want to be nostalgic, if I could be, because I didn't play then I would play this commander, I guess.
We built a deck for him for game nights once. When we did a holiday episode shortly after I started working for the Command Zone, and we wanted to build all the decks based around Christmas songs, and one of them was chestnuts roasting on an open fire. So we did a combination of squirrels because of the chestnuts and mana burn.
Okay, that sounds fun. Did it work well, this deck?
No, it didn't work very well at all.
Okay.
But it was fun.
Yeah, I think that's the best thing for Christmas, I guess, if it's fun.
Yeah, exactly.
So, talking about commanders, we are now talking about, we searched out 5 creatures, non-legendary creatures we would love to see as commanders. And yeah, I would say, Jordan, you may start. So what is the first creature you get?
So the first creature I chose is one that I used to play in all my zombie decks, and I don't as much anymore because it's a little expensive, but I think it would just be super fun if you could build around it completely, which is Havengul Lich, which for our viewers at home is 3 blue and black for a 4/4 zombie wizard. And it basically has, for 1 mana, you can cast target creature card in a graveyard this turn. And when you cast that card this turn, Havengul Lich gains all activated abilities of that card until end of turn. So it's basically a reanimator. It would be a reanimator commander, but I think there's a couple of things that make it like really cool and compelling to me. First is that you can do it from any graveyard, so it doesn't even have to just be your creatures that you do. So like if you set up a thing where you're milling everyone else's stuff, now the trick is that he doesn't let you pay any color of mana to do it. So you would need to put in, some exotic orchards and stuff like that to make sure you can pay the mana for the other people's things. But if you mill everybody, you can cast the best creatures on the board and stuff like that. And the activated abilities thing, I think, is sort of an underrated element of this, because it's sort of like giving everything you reanimate haste, in a sense.
Yeah, true. Yeah, it's such an interesting creature. I thought also, how could you break it? I was more looking on the second part, the activated abilities, because how can you break it? But then I thought it's pretty hard sometimes to find good activated abilities. And then when I looked more into it, okay, if you make a it more a zombie type thing, then something like Rooftop Storm would be very awesome. Like,
yeah.
you would get your creatures for 1, may cast them for 1, and for Rooftop Storm for 5, and the blue is an enchantment which says you may pay 0 rather than pay the mana cost for zombie creature spells you cast. So you just pay 1 and reanimate your stuff.
That's pretty great. Mm-hmm. And I mean, if you get Rooftop Storm, I mean, you could also set it up with like something like a carrion feeder, which if you reanimate it once, suddenly, you can use it as a sack outlet and just put your mana into, like, I saw you pulled up Grey Merchant of Asphodel.
Oh yeah.
Which, we call that Gary, and I love Gary. He's
great.
One of my favorite cards just of all time. And just the idea of reanimating that over and over again in a turn and just being like,
it's over
that's
now.
all you need.
I think it's a very great creature. There should be sometime in the future should be a Havengul Lich legendary, because I would also be interested in building him. The next creature I put out or searched for is one very new one, which just comes out from Tarkir Dragonstorm.
I saw this, and I hadn't really looked at this card before you put it up, but I think this is really cool.
That would be great, Commander, I guess. It's Temur Battlecrier for green, blue, and red, and a 4/3 an Orc Ranger. And says, during your turn, spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. So it basically makes every spell cheaper. That was the thing I was reading twice, because you can also make some kind of spellslinger deck out of it or something else.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing I like, and I know I can understand why this creature is not legendary, because of course they cannot make every multicolor creature legendary in one set. But man, I would love to play this if you have some right of replication and copy some other stuff, which basically makes 5 copies if you pay 9 mana.
I love it. I feel like this could just get out of hand so fast. Oh, and I mean, one of the things that came to my mind when I looked at this is things like capsize, stuff that have buyback. And if you could just reduce the cost so that you could just basically pay for the buyback for free, you could just go bang, 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 and bounce the whole board, or Sprout Swarm and just keep making more and more sprouts and stuff.
Yeah, that's repeatable stuff. Yeah, that's pretty nice. The one creature it reminded me of first was Anima, Souls of the thing. But I think he only reduces the cost for creatures, I guess. But And this one reduces everything. And okay, you need some setup. You need creatures with power 4 or greater, so you would build up your plan for putting out some creatures. But even if not, it's a 4/3, so it would already reduce all your spells by 1, which is also great.
Well, I think the thing I like about the idea of this one as a commander the most too is that, like, a lot of time when you play Spellslinger decks, you're just trying to set up some big loop where you cast a ton of things and kill everybody. And I think you can do stuff with this, but because you want to get all these 4 power creatures out, you have a win con built in. You get to hit people with all the creatures.
Yes, true. Yeah.
And I think that's a really fun way to, like, close out the game in a Spellslinger build.
Yeah. That would be pretty nice creature for a legendary. But yeah, I saw this and it's not legendary. Oh, god damn it! But yeah, it's not a problem. I think you can rule 0 something like that. But yeah.
Hey, I still think this card's gonna, like, have a home in a lot of very cool decks.
Oh yeah. I think so too. At least there's the new Temur Dragon deck, I guess, which was spoiled yesterday when we made the record, and I think that would be also perfect, because this deck is full of dragons who are also powerful.
It hasn't come out yet, but I got to do the precon upgrade for that on the command zone. So nice. If you tune in there in, I think, a couple of days, maybe next week, you could see the cards that I decided to add to that Temur Dragons deck, which I think is really fun.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing this episode. So yeah. Very nice. And then the next one you picked was also very interesting when I looked at it. Yeah.
So the next card I picked was a Battery Bearer.
This is from Brothers War. This is 2, a green and a blue for a 3/4 human artificer. And it says, creatures you control have tap. Add colorless mana. This mana can't be spent to cast a non-artifact spell. So it kind of turns all your creatures into power stones. But then it also says, whenever you cast an artifact spell with mana value 6 or greater, draw a card. I love big mana decks. Like, that's one of my favorite things to build in Magic, is just something that plays a ton of mana and like makes a lot of mana and makes really big things. And I think this would just be such a great enabler for a deck around that. And there's so many things that work really well to like go wide, make lots of artifacts, the stuff that you can cast artifacts to get it bigger. Like the first thing that kind of came to mind for me was Mirkwood Battlesphere.
Oh yeah.
Like, you know, a big 7 mana card, but that is going to make a bunch of little bodies, which will help ramp you into whatever you cast next, and is going to draw you a card with your battery bearer commander here. And I just think it feels like it's also... So green and blue are not necessarily the artifact colors most of the time. Blue is, but you know, green and blue as a combo is a little more rare. And I just think this is a really cool take on it that feels very green and very blue kind of at the same time.
Yeah, I love that too, because also there are so many creatures that reduce the costs of the artifacts you cast. So when you play, for example, an Ethereum Sculptor, it suddenly is a 2 mana dork, because you can tap it for 1 or 2 and reduces the cost. Or Foundry Inspector, there are three of them, I guess. And and
all those just work so well. Yeah.
So it would be also a kind of token heavy deck, and I love tokens.
Tokens are just a blast. I think that this deck would want to like go really wide if you built it and just have a ton of things. But then I think one thing that's pretty fun is that a lot of the win conditions are also sort of built into how you do the deck. Like things like Eldrazi Monument, which will just make everything bigger and indestructible and fly in and stuff. Or Akroma's Memorial, like just to take all the little mana dorks you've had and turn them into killers at the end.
Very nice. Also, I really like such decks, because if you have green, there's some of my favorite cards for artifact themes. For example, the Sarenth Steelseeker, which is I think a little bit undervalued, from Brothers War, I guess, which just says when an artifact enters the battlefield, you may look at the top card, and if it's a land card, you may put it into your hand, and if not, you may put it into the graveyard. What a great card.
That's great.
Yeah, and every time I see a deck with green and artifacts, I think, this card could be played in there.
That would be perfect. Yeah, I think this would open up a really cool style of deck.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, then the next creature I think is really, really cool for if it would be a commander, because it enables some things. Is a creature I recently mentioned on an episode of a podcast, Frenzied Gorespawn. It's a card from the Clue edition from last year, which is basically also one of the most innovative sets of all time from myself. It costs 3 black and a red for a 4/4 horror, and says when Frenzied Gorespawn enters the battlefield, for each opponent goad target creature the player controls, so it has to attack and not another player if able. And whenever one or more creatures attack one of your opponents, those creatures gain menace until end of turn. And I love it if I can animate all the players on the table to attack each other, because, hey, they have menace now. You can't come through.
I love decks like this. Like, decks that are just forcing everyone else to fight each other and incentivizing them to do it is just so much fun. And I mean, Goad, I feel like they've printed more and more Goad in the last couple of years, and it's been one of my favorite red mechanics to, like, see flying around, because it's so... it's so tricky, because when you goad someone into attacking someone else, you're the one who's making them fight each other, but it feels like they're the one who attacks somebody.
And I like it also too. It makes a better dynamic because people sometimes the game is stalling and you want to get it faster, and goading helps there definitely to put at least more pressure onto the table. And I also like this effect that they get menace. It's something that there's also another creature, I think Frontier Warmonger or something like that, that also says creatures attacking your opponents get menace until end of turn. Get menace. But there's also something like Blast Furnace Hellkite, which when you also play that for 7 and 2 red, it's a creature dragon 5/5 and has artifact offering, which might not interest, but it has flying, double strike, and creatures attacking your opponents have double strike. So if you have this one out, your creatures have menace and double strike, and then it gets even more tricky.
That's awesome. I love that. I feel like this would play really well too. Like, you know, if you have like other things to incentivize, like Karazakar and stuff like that, just to, you know, get everyone really eager to fight and kill each other, except you, and then you just stand back and you wait for them to kill each other, and you know, come in with your your final blow.
Exactly. And in the end, then they are attacking you, and so why don't I have double strike? Yeah, because you have no opponent. You can attack. And also, what would really fit very nice into this deck would be Khador Doomscourge. It's I think from Card Time or something. Yeah, for two black and a red, it's a 4/3 Demon Berserker, and when he enters until your next turn, creatures your opponents control attack each combat if able, and attack a player other than you if able. I think it's Goat. Kind of, and whenever an attacking creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life, and that's...
Carter is just so good. I've seen him in a lot of decks with Rakdos recently, and I think, I mean, the everything attacking is such a powerful thing, but when you are in a deck like this, where you're probably, you know, have a lot of damages flying around, the draining everybody and you gaining life, like you just staying ahead of everyone else on life totals, is like really, really key to finishing out these games.
Yeah, definitely. And to add more, if you want to, definitely make the Blast Furnace Hailkite is a real unique effect, I would say. I didn't find any more like this, but there are, of course, the enchantments which double the damage and so on. So basically there are pseudo more of those, and yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would love to play it.
I think it seems like a really fun one.
Yeah.
And again, those sort of like politics group slug decks are always fun to play.
Yeah. Then I think you can continue with your next creature.
Okay, so this one's a weird one, and I don't know if it would be super powerful, but I think it would be really fun.
Yeah.
This is Phytohydra, which is 2 green, white for a 1/1, and it's a plant Hydra. And if damage would be dealt to Phytohydra, put that many +1/+1 counters on it instead. So, I mean, I think the plan of this deck is built into the name. You want to fight.
Yeah.
Like, if you play a lot of fight spells on this, every time you fight with someone else, you basically take their power. Like, you grow them.
Yeah.
And then things like you brought up lore in our document, and just the fact that you could put this on Phytohydra, attack someone, and they have to block with all their creatures, and Phytohydra gets huge after that, just seems hilarious.
I would also then probably put in something like Death Touch and Trample to make it even more fun. And just as you read out the description of the creature, it came to mind that isn't there an enchantment that says, an aura that says all damage that would be dealt to you is redirected to that creature? Paria?
There is there is an equipment, which is Pariah's Shield, which I think would be a really fun little addition for this thing. It's a bit expensive, so it can be a little tough to pull off, because I have a Karn the Betrayer deck, and he has a thing where whenever he would take damage, instead you just pass him around the table. And I used to like to try and put Pariah's Shield on him so that I couldn't die. It just kept bouncing Karn around the table. But I think it would be awesome on
on this, because
Oh yeah.
every bit of damage you take would just make your commander bigger.
I mean, you can try to kill me with commander damage, but this one gets bigger.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're going to outpace you a little bit when we got a Phytohydra on our side. Just give it some trample and send it in for the win.
Oh man, I would love that to see. I mean, it's a little bit costed, like for 5 mana, but yeah, I can. Yeah, I mean, it is green, so of course you can.
Yeah, it's got the ramping you need for everything. And one thing I do think is nice about the green-white color combination is it does have a pretty solid suite of cards for protecting your commander. So, plenty of ways to give it hexproof or, indestructible if there are board wipes and things like that going on. Because I do think that, if you were building this hypothetical Phytohydra deck, he's going to get removed a lot. There's not much you can do about that. But I think green-white has plenty of ways to, protect and make him work. And
yeah,
I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and for the protection part, also the how's it called in English? Destabilize? No, phasing. It's the English one.
Yes, yeah.
So you don't lose the counter if something like that. So that's
and of course, there's stuff like resourceful defenses or the Ozolith, so that even if they get rid of it, you just put those counter right back on it.
Oh yeah, that would be very hilarious to see. Then the next one I found is Ziatora's Envoy. It's from Streets of New Capenna for 1 black, red, and a green. It's a 5/4 Yoshino warrior and has trample. And whenever Ziatora's Envoy deals combat damage to a player, look at the top card of your library. You may play a land from the top of your library or cast a spell with mana value less than or equal to the damage dealt from the top of your library without paying its mana cost. If you don't, put that card into your hand. And it has Blitz, which I think doesn't work from the command zone, I guess. But
I think it has to come from your hand, but I'm not 100% sure. But either way, this is super cool.
Yeah, because I thought, it's Junt, and it's not the typical Junt deck that goes completely off the rails with value train and everything. The commanders just want to go sideways. And you get some value out of it. And since he is pretty big with 5 and trample, I think he can go through. And the combination I like most about this is if you put in some extra combat spells, so you can profit from it more than once. And the best one currently was printed, or best one, but the commander one is Full Throttle for 4 and 2 red is a sorcery which says after this main phase there are 2 additional combat phases, and at the beginning of each combat this turn untap all creatures that attack this turn, so 3 combats.
That's perfect. And then I see you also put Karlach, Fury of Avernus here, which just seems insane with this commander. It would be so good. I mean, Karlach is a card that I feel like I want to put in every red combat deck these days because she's just so like that first strike and the extra combat phase is just woo.
It's one of the best extra combat spells kind of that were printed, because I remember when at Command Fest 2022 when I was in Frankfurt. This card was equivalent to two ticks for 1 booster. So at that time it was a little bit, I would say looked undervalued or not really in the. Yeah.
People missed a lot of cards in Baldur's Gate. I think the set came out and it wasn't all that popular, and people didn't look too deeply into all the cards. And I think people are still kind of discovering how good some of the Baldur's Gate cards are, like Karlach and stuff like that.
Yeah. Or Jahaira.
Yes. I think one of the things I really like about the Ziatora's Envoy thing is I feel like when you have these decks that cast huge things for free off the top of your library, a lot of times that's more in like a blue deck that's going to be, doing like omniscience type stuff. But I feel like this being in Jund color space is going to really give it like a cool flavor of its own,
Yeah. I think so too. And also, if you then start with something like Sensei's Divining Top, also that you can manipulate the top.
Yeah, so you can
Make sure you've got the right thing on there.
Yeah, because something like Brainstorm you have not available in those colors. But yeah.
And if you have, even some like sort of basic staples like Oracle of Moldiah, so you can make sure that you get all the lands off the top of your deck and make sure you've got some primo spell ready to cast for free.
Yeah. That's one creature I would really love to see legendary, but except for the Blitz part, I guess there would be something needed.
So I think I looked it up, and I think you could cast it for its Blitz cost.
Okay. Thank you.
From the command zone, and then it would get haste. But then you'd have to sacrifice it.
Yeah.
So it would just go back to your command zone. But you're allowed to.
Yeah. I mean, if you have something like you are already dead or something. Some of the reanimate things you would play that they would return to the battlefield after dying, for example. Then you could probably blitz it to give it pseudo haste and then draw a card of it and return it to the battlefield. Something.
Yeah, the drawing a card is kind of nice if you know what's on top of your library.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're messing around with Sensei's Divining Top, you can put the spell you want to cast for free on top, and then the thing you want to draw right under it, and you're off to the races.
Yeah, that's interesting. So then we go to your next creature, and I really love this one. I had this on my list too, but I'm glad that you picked it.
So what I will say is I noticed, I won't spoil too much, but I think you also picked a Fate Reforged one later. And I almost wanted to put two of them on mine because this whole cycle of creatures would just make the coolest commanders. But this one is Brutal Hordechief, which is 3 and a black for a 3/3 orc warrior. And whenever a creature you control attacks, defending player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. But then, for 3 and hybrid red-white, creatures your opponents control block this turn if able, and you choose how those creatures block. Yeah. This is a really cool, really powerful effect.
Oh, yeah.
And here's a trick that I think is that would be something I would love to do with this. I'm actually trying to find a way to put this into a deck that can just mess around with this so I can do this sort of thing. But you don't need to do this on your turn either. So you could do something like when your opponents attack each other, you activate this and you set it up so they have to block all their creatures, or all their creatures block one thing and everything else goes through. This is a really dangerous, powerful effect.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I really love it because, you could do so much brutal stuff.
Yeah.
I don't block. What are you talking about? No, you block. No.
Oh, you block. I think, honestly, you could just load this deck up with creatures with Death Touch.
Oh, yeah.
And just, attack out. And even if you have to sacrifice a creature, I think that's fine. You want to be aggressive. You want everything to, be going at each other. But if you have everything on your opponent's board, block one of your big stupid Death Touchers or something like that, I think this seems like so much fun. And then, of course, you can combine Death Touchers, creatures who you want to force to block, with creatures that get value when they aren't blocked, and just make sure that the ones you want are never blocked. And your creatures are getting exactly through when you need them to.
Yeah, that's exactly. I just read my card that I put into there that wouldn't even fit as well as I thought initially. It's a Master of Cruelties. He costs 3 black and a red and has 1/4 for a demon and has first strike Death Touch, which would be pretty good. But can only attack alone. And if you say he has to block, then of course it doesn't work like I intended.
So then it would get blocked. Yeah. But, first strike and Death Touch still lets you kill whatever you want if you got it in there.
Yeah, that's true. But I can also see some very powerful player damage creatures in there, and you say, okay, just block the token here, and the other one that has the real important effect, I will get the value from it, and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a really cool effect. And there's a couple other cards that manipulate combat like this. I think there's a mono white, one of the Audrix, Master Tactician or something.
And is there also a sorcery or an instant in Boros that's I think that's for
so
4.
There's a couple effects that do things like this, but it's still a pretty unique sort of thing that you don't see that often in Magic, where you get to control how your opponent, blocks and manipulate combat in such a powerful way. So I think this would be really fun to build around.
Yeah. And I also don't see those effects often. I think the last time I saw this was a few years back or so. So people are not really, putting those effects too much in their decks. And the next one I searched out is a little bit similar to a creature before, because it rewards combat and also combat against your opponents. It's a Mirkwood Trapper. It's from The Lord of the Rings, and he costs 1 green and blue for an elf scout, has 1/4. And whenever a player attacks you, target attacking creature gets -2/-0 until end of turn. And whenever a player attacks, if they aren't attacking you, that player chooses an attacking creature. It gets +2/+0 until end of turn. So it's not as unfair as the Frenzied Gorespawn.
I like it though. It's simple, and I think one thing that feels like it would be fun and really effective about it is that it's just a little bit of extra incentive for them not to attack you and to attack the other opponent. And a lot of times that's all you need. Especially if you're backing it up with other things that make it harder to attack you or make it more exciting to attack your opponents, things like that.
Yeah, for example, I think there's the Ovia Automech Artisan or something like that from the Etheldrift, which says every creature attacking your opponents gets trample.
Gets trample, yeah.
and then
she can also basically Elvish Piper in creatures for free. That seems like that would be a great addition to a deck like this, if only because not only does it incentivize people attacking other stuff, but if they attack you, you could always tap her and flash in some sort of creature to make them really regret attacking you.
Yeah, exactly. And the good thing is about it, it's not really narrow, so you can build it any way you'd like. Probably you would try to do something. I would put in something like Propaganda, to be real, which is for 2 and blue in the enchantment and says creatures can't attack you unless their controller pays 2 for each creature they control that's attacking you. So I would kind of try to demotivate my opponents to attack me, as you said, and
a card I've really been liking recently from I think it was from the Duskmourn Commander decks is a Giggling Skitterspike, which it's a 4-mana 1/1 with Indestructible, but it's whenever it attacks, blocks, or becomes the target of a spell, it deals damage equal to its power to each of your opponents.
Yeah.
And you can also monstrous it for 5 to turn it into a 6/6. But if it's great for decks like this where the most important thing is just deterring people from attacking you.
Oh yeah. And you still get the benefit because if you attack, then it still triggers. This creature is rough.
Exactly.
It's really rough. When you're listening this on Monday, there should have come out the first gameplay I edited and put out, and this creature plays a major role in this game. It's so insane, this card. Oh my god.
Nice.
Yeah.
You'll have to send me that link when it comes out.
I will send you the link. It's in German, unfortunately. So, but
I'll be able to follow what's going on anyway.
Yeah, true. Yeah, very nice. Then let's go for your first creature, and I really like it too.
So this card is just like an all-time favorite of mine. So I really love Warhammer 40k and the whole lore behind that, and I really love those decks when they came out. And this is the Exalted Flamer of Tzeentch, which is 2 blue-red for a 2/4 creature demon. And it has Sorcerous Inspiration, which is at the beginning of your upkeep, return an instant or sorcery card at random from your graveyard to your hand. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Exalted Flamer of Tzeentch deals 1 damage to each opponent. The randomness in this just seems super fun. I think this just feels like a really cool way to build a Spellslinger deck. You could mix this with some stuff like Paradox Haze or I think it's the ninth Doctor who gives you extra upkeeps if he untaps and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the thing that would be really fun about playing a deck like this is I would want to just fill my graveyard with a ton of different instants and sorceries and let the chaos kind of decide how the deck plays.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like a lot of Spellslinger decks, and you know, you'll probably want to do stuff that can play themselves from the graveyard or other things that can get stuff from the graveyard. But Exalted Flamer of Tzeentch is going to be all about chaos. It's going to just be pulling cards back to your hand every turn, and sometimes you'll get the removal you need over and over again, and sometimes you're just going to get card draw spells, sometimes you'll get, you know, whatever else it is you're throwing in there. And I think that's what makes it seem really fun. A lot of cards, too, that let you play, or a lot of commanders that let you play stuff from the graveyard, usually exile it after it's been played. But again, this doesn't play it from the graveyard. It actually pulls it back to your hand at your upkeep. So
yeah,
I love this card. I think it's really fun.
Yeah, I can see this being really diverse, and as you said, when no game plays like the second because you don't get to choose the instant and sorceries you get back. What I think of always when I see a creature like this, when it says it makes 1 damage to each opponent in these colors, I love cards like Curiosity or Fidget Eye, which just say when you deal damage, you draw a card.
and you don't have to get in, you just have to cast your spells.
Yeah. So
another thing I think is kind of cool is even if you draw so many cards that you have to discard, you just discard all your instants and sorceries, and then they come back to your hand at random next time.
Yeah, that's really, really sick effect. Because in this case, if you would cast an instant, for example, and you have Curiosity on it, you would deal 1 damage to 3 opponents in normal cases, and then you draw 3 cards extra.
Which is really good.
yeah, it's insane. I had one time, what was it, Malcolm and Cadiz Artisan commander deck, which is only with commons and uncommons, and it can also get going infinite pretty easily. So with such effects. So the Malcolm says that when a pirate deals damage to an opponent, then you get to make a treasure token, and the Cadiz says when you make combat damage with a commander, you make equal damage to the other opponents. And so those cards were also included, of course.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So then
that works out super fun.
Yeah. I would love to see that too. And the last creature that I searched out, I think you already made a teaser about it. It's Soulfire Grandmaster. It's for 1 and a white human monk, has 2/2. And says lifelink, and instant and sorcery spells you control have lifelink, which is also very nice. And for 2 and hybrid blue-red, the next time you cast an instant or sorcery spell from your hand this turn, put that card into your hand instead of into your graveyard as it resolves. So it's basically similar to what your creature said, but you can decide if you want to keep it.
This card is insane. This would be such a cool commander.
Yeah.
I mean, just the line of text that instant and sorcery spells you control have lifelink is already just such a cool... I think there's a couple of things that do it, but it's so unique and interesting and different.
Yeah, I think the last time I've read this was on Judith from Murders at Call of Mana. Was it Death Touch or was it Death Touch and lifelink? I don't know exactly. But yeah, it's something you don't see as much, but I think Judith was too oppressive. It was a commander that nobody likes to play against, or most people. Why would you? And
well, it's just Death Touch and lifelink. Who cares? Yeah. No, yeah, I think just lifelink seems maybe a little more fair.
yeah, exactly. And okay, this creature, the Soulfire Grandmaster, costs only 1 and white, so only 2 mana, so you can start rolling pretty quickly. But if you then play a Blasphemous Act, you get zillions of life.
So much life gain.
Yeah, because every creature gets 13 damage, and then multiply it by the creatures that are on the battlefield.
Oh, that is the dream.
Mm-hmm. And I could really see this going into some deck that has an end win con like Etherflux Reservoir, where you say you pay a 50 life and shoot 50 life to a player. And if you don't get to the life as fast as you want to, there's always Hammered's Archive, which says you would gain twice.
Oh, yeah.
much life.
that would go off so quickly.
Oh yeah, I think so too.
All the cards, all the life that you need.
Definitely. There's also this one sorcery for one red from, I think it's Foundation, where it says 3 damage to each opponent. Just like, okay, I make 9 damage and I get 9 life for 1 mana. Why not?
Yeah, I honestly think a lot of the cheaper ones, like even like Electrickery or something like that just deals 1 damage to all the creatures on the board. Like tricks like that, that wouldn't be very playable most of the time in Commander would become really strong in a deck like this, because they would just gain you so much life.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, then it leaves you always to the, do you have enough commander damage to kill me or not?
Yep.
Yeah, but then in the end, what to the listeners, what are your favorite creatures that are unfortunately not legendary? Let us know in the comments below, and you can also write on Spotify. There's also the option to comment. I will also comment on your comments if you comment there, so there's some interaction for the algorithm. And yeah, before we go to the last part where you can say where people can find you, there's one thing I want to say. If you like gameplay and you are German, if you even want to watch it because you know the cards from the images or so, please have a look at the gameplay show, which should come out at 14th of April. And there's also a giveaway running for 2 weeks. So if you want to have some Ultimate Guard stuff like sleeves and flex folio, like where you could put your cards in and for your collection and so on, go to the video, check out how you can participate. And yeah, then I would say we go to the last one. Jordan, thank you very much for taking the time.
Well, thank you for having me. It was really fun to talk about all these cards.
Yeah, I had also much fun, and I think it's a little bit later in the time for you, but thank you for staying up that long. And
of course, happy to do it. Thanks for waking up so early.
Yeah, I do anyways. And the last thing I guess do on the show when they are creators like you are, they can say where people can find them. And yeah, if people don't know, I don't think it is like that, but if people don't know, where can they find you?
Well, the best place to find me is on the CommandZone YouTube channel. I'm not in the videos all that often, although I do a lot of the voices for our like mid-roll ads and sponsor spots and stuff like that. But if you keep an eye on the channel, I'm doing a deck upgrade pretty soon for the Temur Dragons deck, and I think that'll be pretty cool. And keep an eye on. I show up in Extra Turns episodes every now and then and things like that. So my fingers are in the pie of CommandZone stuff all over the place. So,
yeah,
if you want to hear a bit more about our takes on Commander and everything, come and join us. We're making stuff all the time.
Definitely check it out. And if you don't want to type so much, I'll also put all the links in the show notes and the video description so you can directly jump to CommandZone. And yeah, then in the end, thanks again, Jordan, for joining me today. It was a great pleasure for me.
It was a pleasure for me as well.
Yeah, and at the end of the podcast episode, I always say, viel Spaß beim Commander spielen, which translates, and that's the last sentence, have fun playing Commander.